Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a new law that was recently passed in Tennessee that will now allow teachers to carry firearms in the classroom. On Tuesday, April 23rd, Republican lawmakers passed a bill that would allow certain teachers that had passed a specialized 40-hour course to conceal carry firearms on campus, and stated that these teachers were not required to inform other staff or parents of their concealed carry status. House Democrats did their best to try and strike this bill down, as well as adding amendments to it to make it safer, such as requiring teachers to lock up their firearms unless there is an actual emergency. But Republicans struck this all down, saying that teachers did not need to do this, and that for them to reveal their concealed carry status would put them in danger. I'm sorry, how is knowing that somebody is carrying a loaded firearm more dangerous than having a 6-year-old sitting next to a teacher who is carrying a loaded firearm? Many people have been trying to urge Tennessee Governor Bill Lee to veto this bill, but it really seems like he is just ignoring the entire thing, seeing as he has not vetoed or signed it either way, meaning it is most likely going to pass on into law without his signature. Slight update, Governor Bill Lee has actually now said that he will be signing this law, so he is completely supporting this law of arming teachers in Tennessee schools. Protests against this law have been large and loud. The House was actually flooded with protesters while this bill was being debated on and coming into effect, and one woman named Lauren Shipman Dorrance was actually had to be removed from the House floor after she yelled out at lawmakers who were casually chatting and scrolling through their phone and eating lunch during the debate. Quote, "I've been teaching a long time. I've worked in a lot of schools where violence is a thing, even if a gun isn't involved. And this will happen more if they pass this. I used to think they didn't get it, but I honestly just think at this point, they're not hearing us no matter what. And that really, to me, calls into question ethically, morally, what they are doing and why." Once the law passed, chaos descended on the House floor, with protesters chanting "blood on your hands" until House Speaker Cameron Sexton ended up ordering state troopers to remove all protesters from the floor. Many Democrats have stated that putting more guns in schools is just going to put our children in even more danger, while Republicans have argued that arming teachers will help out a variety of things and will deter future shooters if they knew that staff could potentially be armed, as well as making up for the schools that don't have resource officers or happen to be so out of the way in rural areas that it might take a while for police to respond in case of an emergency. Several Republicans also referred to the Covenant school shooting that happened in Tennessee about a year ago for one of the reasons why this bill is needed. However, even parents of students who survived this shooting are not supportive of this bill. One mother going even so far as to write a letter and collect over 5,300 signatures where she begged lawmakers not to put this bill into effect.
I am still in shock and just sickened by our legislature that thinks this is the solution to ending mass shootings or eliminating the risk of sending our children to school and getting shot at.
Republicans really do seem to believe wholeheartedly in the sentiment that the only thing that can take down a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, even though every single study shows the exact opposite is true. We have been dumping countless amounts of money into police and school resource officers ever since Columbine happened. And in the nearly 30 years since that incident, there is only one case that we can look to where a resource officer stopped a school shooting. One. Despite all of this money and all of the increased police presence, school shootings have spiked. And so many cases show that police presence actually ends up making violent incidents much worse. A recent study by researchers from the Violence Project suggests that armed guards in schools don't reduce fatalities. Researchers examined 133 school shootings and attempted school shootings between 1980 and 2019, tallied up by the K-12 school shooting database. At least one armed guard was present in almost a quarter of the cases studied, and researchers found no significant reduction in rate of injury in these cases. In fact, shootings at schools with an armed guard ended up with 3 times as many people killed on average. Quote, "When firearms are present, there is room for error, and even highly trained officers get split-second decisions wrong," the researchers wrote. Prior research suggests that many school shooters are actively suicidal, intending to die in the act. So an armed officer may be an incentive rather than a deterrent. A 2013 study conducted by the FBI analyzed 160 active shooter incidents, found most attacks were carried out in, quote, "a matter of minutes," making it difficult for armed guards to be in the right place at the right time. Jordan Klepper of The Daily Show even took on the idea that the only thing that can take down a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, and he failed miserably.
There's an active shooter in the building. With my Glock 17 modified to shoot paintball-like bullets, I'm the good guy with a gun who's gonna take him down.
Okay, so you need to be ready. It could happen at any second. From this point on, just need to be ready. Probably not going to be ready for it in real life.
But I get a do-over. Let's do it over again.
So I kneeled down and prepared to do battle. And got shot again. And again. And again. The scenario is as follows. I hear shots fired at an elementary school. Police are on the way. There's the bad guy. Mission accomplished. Okay, so that wasn't the bad guy. So where are the bad? There they are. There they are. The authorities are here. I just hope they know I'm a good guy. I was shot over 20 times by 2 different bad guys with guns. And then the police mistook me for a bad guy and shot me a bunch too.
I do suggest that you check out the entire 10-minute video where Jordan Klepper breaks down the entire argument and goes over how that most of the time, actually, the thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is an unarmed civilian.
About 1 out of every 5 active shooter events gets stopped by a potential victim at the scene, and most of those victims are unarmed. There are some cases where we have good guys with guns who are able to stop the shooter.
Most cases.
Very few cases.
Half the cases.
Not half.
A quarter of the cases.
Not a quarter of the cases.
What's the percent?
It's about 3%.
It is a very good video. Definitely give it a watch. Now, I gotta be honest with y'all. I love guns. I have been shooting since I was 8 years old, if not younger. I have spent hours and hours and hours at the gun range growing up, shooting handguns and rifles and shotguns and everything there is out there. Some of my best and favorite childhood memories are of shooting guns. However, if you were to tell me that giving up guns in any form, even if I wouldn't be able to consume any media that had guns in it, if you told me that me giving that up would make it so that no child died of gun violence ever again, I would do it in a heartbeat. My love and passion for guns is absolutely not worth more than the lives of actual children. And it is very often to me that when I see people interacting with guns or any type of weapon in general, really, they do not have any understanding or respect for the power that they hold with this type of object. Safety with weapons is never taken seriously, when in reality, it is possible to live in a gun-loving society without gun violence. Switzerland does it, and the reason on how they do it is they take gun safety seriously.
Turns out peaceful Switzerland is one of the most heavily armed nations in the world. And like America, they love their guns. Yet they have almost zero gun violence.
They regulate their guns. They ensure that every single adult has been through intense gun safety classes. And the thing that they do that I like is that they only allow bullets at ranges. So you can show up to the range, you can shoot whatever you want, you can own however many guns you want, you can have a whole entire collection at home and stuff like that. It's just that the only place that you actually have access to bullets is at the range, and the only place that you are allowed to interact with bullets at all is on this range. And some of you might be thinking, Spencer, I like hunting. How am I supposed to hunt if I'm not allowed to shoot any bullets outside of the range? And to that I say, you still can hunt. You just gotta learn the bow and arrow. Bow and arrow too hard sounds like a skill issue. Get good. No, but in reality, I'm not going to act like I have the answer to every single question for a situation like this. However, my point is that there are definitely decisions that we could be making that are a lot better than the decisions that we are currently making now. And the best place for us to start off is absolutely by reducing the amount of guns that are in our school in general. It's really interesting to me because it seems like Republicans think that absolutely nothing bad will happen if you put a loaded weapon on the hip of every teacher in every classroom, but at the same time will act like if a child reads a book that has queer or brown characters in it, then everybody is gonna die from critical race theory. They also can't seem to generalize anything because they'll talk about how we can't regulate guns because if somebody really wants to get a hold of a gun, then they'll be able to do it. But if you try and argue to decriminalize drugs or prostitution for the same reason, all of a sudden it's no, we need to have even more laws around those things. Republicans seem to be living in a world that is truly different than the one the rest of us are living in, and we are suffering for it. However, we do not have to. Do you know how to make these things better? Vote. Every single one of those Republican lawmakers who just passed this bill, elect them out and put in people who are actually going to take these things seriously and put our children first. This is a little bit off topic, but about a year ago, I went to a bow and arrow range with a girl that I was seeing at the time. It was a pretty nice place. You kind of pay them like a flat fee and you can rent a bow and a couple of arrows and you can kind of shoot for like however long you want to. And if you are not somebody who really goes to like any sort of range in general, whether it's a gun range or an arrow range or any type of like weapon range, then you may not be familiar with the safety etiquette that you're supposed to follow when you are there. So the way that it works is everybody shoots and shoots and shoots, and then there comes a time in which people will call that you can go down the range and you can go and get your arrows, or you can pull your target, or you can do whatever you want. But either way, there is a person who calls when it is safe to go down range and when it is safe to shoot. Part of the safety etiquette for that is when there are people down range, your bow is hung up, your gun is put down, your hands are off your weapon. And yet, time and time again, I had to tell this girl, put your bow down. We do not pick up our weapon when there are people down range. And of course, she was being like, oh, well, I'm not gonna shoot it. I just wanna hold it. And she could not comprehend the fact that it does not matter that you are only holding your weapon. This is a basic safety standard that we follow because it is very easy to get non-complicit with things, not really pay attention to what you're doing, get in your head, and not be aware of your surroundings and start shooting when there are people downrange, which is so unsafe. I think that there are so many people out there who are so convinced that they could never possibly make a mistake, that means that they are now refusing to follow practices that would ensure that they never do. Oh, I don't need to wear a helmet when I ride my bike. I haven't fallen off of my bike in years. Oh, I don't need to wear a mask when I go out. I'm not gonna get sick. I never get sick. Oh, I can carry a gun and it's fine for me to be shooting at whoever because I can obviously tell who's a good guy and who's a bad guy immediately on split-second glance. I know that it is difficult to admit that humans can make mistakes, and even harder to admit that you as a person are capable of making mistakes. But it is only when we recognize that these things are possible that we start doing things to make it so that mistakes happen less often. Do you know what is the number one thing that dropped surgical deaths and mistakes in hospitals? Them implementing a policy that required surgical staff to go over 7 extremely simple questions, such as, what's the name of our patient? Do we have the right patient? What procedure are we doing? What part of the body are we operating on? These are all things that hospitals had previously assumed that everybody would know and be on the same page about, but it wasn't until they started actually going over these very basic questions that they were catching these minor mistakes, and a lot of things dropped. This is what we need to start implementing here. Let's stop coming up with weird, convoluted plans that are only going to work in a John Wick movie and start implementing simple, straightforward safety standards. All right, that's kind of everything that I have on this topic. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more like it. But besides that, make sure that you stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.